Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Informed American podcast. I'm your host, Shelley Meyer, and today we're discussing a topic that has been a focal point of global attention for decades: Israel's recent actions regarding Gaza. The situation has escalated, and Israel's military actions and plans for Gaza are raising important questions about the region's future. In today's episode, I'm going to break down what's currently going on, the history behind the conflict, the implications for both Israel and Gaza, and what it all means for the international community as a whole. We'll also discuss the broader political context, including the U.S. involvement and how this move is being viewed on the global stage. And an important update: Israel has halted food aid to Gaza, which has created significant concerns over the humanitarian crisis unfolding. So let's explore the reasons behind that and what it means for the people caught in the middle of this escalating conflict. To start, let's talk about the situation as it stands today. Israel has intensified its military action in Gaza, with reports of airstrikes, ground operations, and military incursions aimed at both militant groups and infrastructure in the region. The Israeli government has stated that its actions are a response to ongoing threats from Hamas, the militant group that has controlled Gaza for more than a decade. For those of you who may not be familiar, Gaza is a small, densely populated strip of land on the Mediterranean coast, home to around 2 million people. It's geographically separated from Israel, bordered by Egypt on the southwest. Israel has maintained a blockade around Gaza for years, citing security concerns and preventing the flow of goods and resources that could potentially be used by Hamas. The current escalation follows months of rising tensions, with numerous rocket attacks from Gaza targeting Israel's cities and military installations. Israel's military response has been swift, and the situation has quickly spiraled, leading to large-scale casualties on both sides and creating a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The international community has raised concerns about the potential for even more violence and instability in the region. An alarming development in the midst of the escalation is Israel's decision to halt food aid into Gaza. This is a critical issue because Gaza has long relied on humanitarian aid to meet basic needs, especially food and medical supplies. The United Nations and various international organizations have warned that the halt in aid could lead to even more severe food insecurity, compounding the existing humanitarian disaster. Israel's reasoning behind this decision is tied to security concerns. Israel argues that the aid could be exploited by Hamas, potentially allowing the militant group to use these resources to fund their operations instead of addressing the needs of the civilian population. Additionally, Israel has raised concerns that such aid could be used to smuggle weapons into Gaza under the guise of humanitarian shipments. The situation has sparked outrage from humanitarian groups and the international community itself, with critics arguing that halting food aid punishes the civilian population of Gaza, which it does. They're already living in dire conditions. These measures have put millions of people in an incredibly precarious position, unable to access enough food and basic resources. The move also raises a larger moral question. Is it right to halt life-saving aid because of the actions of militant group? While Israel's security concerns are valid, many argue that the people of Gaza should not be caught in the crossfires of this geopolitical struggle. The conflict between Israel and Gaza is deeply rooted in the broader Israeli Palestine conflict, which has spanned more than a century. The roots of the struggle go back to the early 20th century when both Jewish and Arab populations laid claim to the same land, with competing national movements arising. The situation became even more complicated after World War II when the United States partitioned Palestine, creating the State of Israel in 1948. This led to the First Arab-Israeli War, and the region has been embroiled in violent clashes ever since. Is it going to end ever? Probably not. Gaza in particular has been a flashpoint in the conflict. It was controlled by Egypt until 1967, when Israel captured it during the Six-Day War. In the years following, Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005, but tensions have remained high, especially since Hamas took control of the territory in 2007 after winning elections, and Hamas is considered a terrorist organization by Israel, the U.S., and the European Union, and its stated goal is the destruction of Israel. This is not a good thing. Since then, Israel has maintained a blockade on Gaza, citing security concerns due to Hamas's activities, including rocket fire into Israeli territory. The humanitarian situation in Gaza has worsened, with limited access to basic services, including water, food, and medical supplies. The people of Gaza have endured difficult living conditions, exacerbated the already tense and volatile situation. Now, let's talk about Israel's actions and plans regarding Gaza in a little more detail. Israel's military has launched numerous operations in Gaza over the years, but recent moves signal a possible shift in strategy. Israel's government, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has justified the military takeover as a necessary response to the growing threat posed by Hamas and other militant groups. They argue that military action is the only way to ensure Israel's security and to dismantle Hamas's infrastructure, which they accuse of using civilians as human shields. And they probably are. The Israeli government has also emphasized that this operation is aimed at weakening Hamas's military capabilities and preventing further attacks on Israel civilians. However, the reality on the ground in Gaza is much more complex. The operation has led to significant casualties among civilians, with both Palestinian and Israeli lives lost. That's just too many. One is too many. Israel's broader strategy appears to be one of de facto annexation, with the government signaling that it may take stronger, more permanent military role in Gaza moving forward. There are talks of expanding military control in Gaza to prevent Hamas from regaining power and creating a more secure and stable region from Israel's perspective. The most devastating consequence of this takeover is the impact on Gaza's civilian population. The people of Gaza are already living in dire conditions, and the ongoing conflict only exacerbates this crisis. The United States, the United Nations, and various humanitarian organizations have warned that the escalation will lead to a worsening humanitarian disaster. Thousands of people have already been killed and many more have been injured. The infrastructure of Gaza, already in tatters, has been further damaged by Israeli airstrikes, leaving thousands without homes, electricity, and access to basic services. Hospitals are overwhelmed with casualties, and the region's hospitals and medical facilities are struggling to care for the injured. The humanitarian toll is staggering, and many fear that a long-term military occupation of Gaza could lead to even more suffering for its people. The international community's reaction to Israel's actions in Gaza has been mixed. The United States has historically been a strong ally of Israel and has supported its right to defend itself against attacks. However, as the violence has escalated, some U.S. lawmakers and human rights organizations have raised concerns about the scale of Israel's military actions and the civilian casualties resulting from this conflict. Other nations, particularly in the Arab world and the United Nations, have condemned Israel's military operations as disproportionate and harmful to innocent civilians, and it has been on both sides. Some governments are calling for an immediate ceasefire, while others are urging Israel to reconsider its long-term military presence in Gaza. At the same time, there's a growing pressure on the international community to step up its efforts to mediate a peace agreement between Israel and Hamas, although the chances of reaching a resolution in the near future appear slim. So, what does the future hold for Gaza and Israel? The situation remains fluid and tense, with no clear resolution in sight. Israel is determined to dismantle Hamas's control over Gaza, but this military strategy could come at a high cost, both in terms of human lives and regional stability. The people of Gaza continue to endure unimaginable suffering, and the international community faces increasing pressure to intervene diplomatically. For the Winchesters of the world, the lessons of conflict and the resolution seem ever present, but the reality is far more complicated. The key question moving forward will be whether Israel can achieve its security goals without further escalating the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and whether international pressure will prompt a change in strategy, or if this cycle of violence will continue. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of the Informed American Podcast. This is a complex, ongoing situation, and I'll continue to monitor developments. But be sure to just subscribe, like, and share my podcast. It helps me so much, and I appreciate the views, and I appreciate the likes. I would like subscribers as well. If you enjoy my podcast, please subscribe. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and take care.